Thank you so much for that incredible performance. It was so amazing to hear your beautiful sound soaring here in the David Lee Sound Gallery. I want to thank Anita Quayle on cello and Xani Kolac on violin from Melbourne Amplified Strings for that incredible performance of duets. We are about to jump into a Q&A here on the Sound Gallery sessions, and we'd like you to get involved. If you do have any questions after that performance for Xani and Anita, you can simply type them into the comments section via YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching us from this evening. But firstly, I guess there's so much to talk with you both about. You're both incredibly prolific artists and composers. You're involved in a number of different projects, both of you. I wanted to begin asking about this particular project, Melbourne Amplified Strings, which I understand sort of began a couple of years ago now. Xani, can you maybe start by telling us about how Melbourne Amplified Strings formed and your vision and intention behind the project?
Sure. So I guess it probably began when I realised that I just wanted to be surrounded by lots of other string players, and that's just been my dream forever, is how can I get more strings in my life? And the thing about performing contemporary string music is there are less of us out there. So I always hoped that I would meet a soul buddy who would be into contemporary string playing. And by that time, I had worked out how I could make my sound like a plethora of violins rather than just one. And then I actually came across Anita through I was putting on a different event, and I was asking some colleagues of mine who they recommended as a contemporary cellist, and that led me to Anita. And then I found another cello, like another string player who was doing contemporary string playing and was using loops, and so together we could just create something huge.
Amazing. And the other player is normally Biddy Connor, is that right?
So Biddy formed it with us, and then she also has another quartet, and so she's it's now just the two of us that kind of founded it. But Biddy was involved in our very first concert. So, yeah, and she still plays our music on Classics FM. So she's still a fan.
I guess this particular program, Duets, that you performed for us tonight was the third concert in your series from last year. And you've mentioned that Duets is about creating an environment for exchange and harmony and opposition. Why was that a theme you were keen to particularly explore, and maybe what discoveries have you made in your musical explorations? Maybe I'll ask you that, Anita.
Well, I guess because it became Xani and I last year. So, and we wanted to put a concert on just for the two of us without any sort of special guest artists. So it really forced us to think outside the square for what two instruments can do. So the sort of whole concept, I guess, behind our duets material was to really try and push those boundaries of sameness and difference, and just really exploring the sort of possibilities of harmony and everything, of what can happen between two string instruments and a whole heap of effects. So.
And maybe talking about duets or duos, we've got one of the great musical partnerships here, Xani Kolac and Anita Quayle. I guess, what would you maybe say are some of the keys to a great musical partnership? Maybe Xani, I'll ask you that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Anita and I, our first gig was I was putting on this show called Stand By Your Woman, and I'm a big advocate for getting more female and non-binary instrumentalists onto stages around Australia. So I kind of put on these shows with 14-piece ensembles, all women. And that was the first gig that Anita and I played. And so from then we were playing a lot of these kind of gigs together. And when you work in a string quartet section, you get better at playing together over time. It's not... I've never really been able to go straight into a string quartet and gel with the other players because it's such a expressive instrument, and trying to be in tune with each other is always quite a challenge, and you kind of learn to breathe together the more you play together. So it really took us a few years, but I even remember the turning point when we were like, we feel like we're on the same page, we're breathing together, we that's why the improvisations could work, like a free improvisation. Whereas before we might have gone on two different paths. And I guess that's the thing with the duets, like gone off on our own things. I feel like as you get to know someone better and play with them, you start to listen more and make room for each other, knowing, like anticipating what each other's going to do.
That's so interesting you say that. My next question was going to be about live improvisation, because it seems to me that I know nothing about it, but it seems such a scary thing sort of to do in a live context, and I imagine, you know, can maybe go horribly wrong if you're not, you know, in the zone with each other. So it's, really interesting to hear you talk about breathing together. Are you sort of looking at each other? It's more of a feeling. What are some of the things that make live improvisation work successfully, do you think?
I love it. I'm more at home there improvising, but I felt like tonight it was a time when learning to not be afraid of space or the other, like going, I better fill it up, because what if the other person is struggling and they don't know what to do, so I'll fill it up. And tonight I just was like, I'm going to go with this idea. And then Anita was just there in time, just with a response to that idea. And then I kept that idea, and then she started presenting another one, and then I'd come in with, you know, a response to that. But like, what do you think about improv?
I feel like it's, you know, when you're doing it on your own, it's certainly a trust thing you have with yourself. But, you know, to actually make music without notes on a page together with someone else that only comes with time, I think. Time and trust, and you build this sort of intuitive rapport with one another. And yeah, like the key word there is trust, just to know that the other person's actually got you back, and vice versa. So you can be free to explore and to try things out, and you know that they'll always be there. So yeah.
And knowing when to finish, that's the other scary part. But and like, we weren't looking at each other. I had my eyes closed most of it.
We close our eyes a lot, don't we?
It's mainly
these
listening.
days. Yeah.
Just to like, really get a sense of it. And I really felt the end tonight. It's like, there is the end.
Yeah.
Do you ever get annoyed if you felt the end but someone else keeps going? Does that ever happen?
I don't know that it's annoyance. It's just like, okay, I'll add another idea.
Yeah,
like, it's that improv exercise, the yes and exercise. Mm-hmm. You know, if someone is keeping on going, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to dig deep now because I had built a shape. But
it's nice to know that, you know, we've sort of built up this skill set so that when that happens, it's really not an issue. It's like, oh, cool, okay, we'll do something else, and then we'll sort of wrap up later.
Yeah. Or just let Anita finish it, and I'm like, well, I'm done. So
there's always that too. Yeah.
Well, we should get to some audience questions as well, because we're running out of time. But we're going to take a couple from YouTube and Facebook. Some viewers out there who have written questions to Xani and Anita. From Min, who asks, is your music available on iTunes or Spotify?
So I'll answer that one then. One of the things that this pandemic has really brought to the attention of the musicians in our industry is that even though live music and live performance stopped, the streaming and all the streaming services continued on, and it's very difficult for indie musicians to make a sustainable living from the proceeds of streaming. And it's something that I believe was quite broken about our system. So one of the things we encourage is, of all audiences, if you are genuine music lovers, that you think about ethically consuming music. And the best place is either direct through the artist's website or on Bandcamp. So we don't have our music on Spotify or iTunes, which might change in the future, but we'd still always encourage you, please ethically consume music.
And look out for Bandcamp when they have Bandcamp Fridays as well, because all proceeds go to the artists. We've got another question from Damien, who's asking a question to Anita, who says, I guess you learned cello on a conventional instrument. When did you start playing the electric cello, and how often do you switch between the two?
I'm so glad that question was asked. I just started playing electric cello yesterday.
Wow.
I bought this baby Yamaha electric cello, and I tried it out all afternoon and realised it was just as good as my the actual feel of the instrument was just as good as my acoustic. So I thought, why not? Why not debut it tonight?
Amazing.
So
it's first outing.
that's yeah. Thanks, Damien, for that question. So I haven't played this for long enough to know when I would switch between the two. But usually for live stuff, I'll probably always use the electric. But for recordings, I will use my acoustic instrument, which is quite old.
We've got Angela who's asking, where and when do you get your inspiration for these beautiful pieces? When does inspiration strike?
Well, your Wanderlust.
Yeah, the Wanderlust was a result of a 3-month solo trip. So I went to 6 different countries, and all I took was my backpack and a tape recorder. So I would tape sort of field recordings of everyday life in different countries. So I went to Ubud and Japan and Iceland and New York and Paris and Berlin. And so if you buy the album, Wanderlust album, you'll actually hear a lot of the field recordings that have been threaded into these pieces. So that's been a big one for me, I guess, as far as inspiration for writing.
Yeah, and I think I really work with maths. I work with themes and metaphors. So I will maybe pick a theme, whatever it might be, and then I will brainstorm I'll kind of have a mind map, and I go, okay, here's this theme. What are all the metaphors or analogies, or what poems have I heard, or is there some lecture on this topic somewhere, newspaper articles, and I'll just dig deep and find stuff. And then after I've thought about it and really considered the themes, I will set up all my gear and I'll improvise for a couple of hours and just like create songs out of improvisations, just play on the fly, and then it'll be a process of listening back and finding the bits I like and then putting it all together. That's how my process works. But great question.
Great question. We've got a final audience question. Oh no, we've got a couple more. One from Mark who asks, do you think you will add any more instruments into the mix?
Well, we were meant to be doing a performance this month with Sarita McCard on sitar and Mindy Meng Wang on guzheng. So we do get guest artists to come in, and we have been looking at expanding other amplified string instruments. So here we have the guzheng and we had the sitar, and they like using pedals and amplifying their instruments too. So we usually collaborate, but this program was duets, and we can't really bring too many people into the rehearsal room at the moment.
That's true. We've got a last audience question from Tom, who says, Xani, would you secretly like to be a 70s guitar hero?
I wonder why Tom asks that question. No, I would very obviously like to be a 21st century violin hero.
Thank you for those wonderful audience questions. I wanted to talk to you both about being prolific artists during this strange time that we're in as well. You've just put out a new album, Wanderlust, which you were talking about, and Xani, you've dropped a surprise EP called Winter earlier this month. There's a new album, I understand, coming out in September as well. But you've been really sort of prolific in terms of your creative output on social media. I guess musicians, aren't able to play live at the moment. You've certainly been keeping yourself busy doing, lots of live streaming sessions over on your Twitch channel, from, I think, all things from disco to 90s house to Kraftwerk covers to the Sea Change theme covers to an In Excess tribute I saw last night. I guess, you sort of seem to be really trying to find the positives during this time and being creative and not letting this time of isolation get the better of you. Are you sort of seeing maybe this moment instead as an opportunity to rebuild and revolutionise, would you say?
I think that just for me personally, because I've seen a lot of my colleagues, it's been a very it hasn't been a creative time, and everyone's experience is going to be very different. And, you know, if you've got financial pressures and all that kind of stuff, then I don't think it necessarily has to be a time of regrowth and rebuilding. But for me, it has been that. It's been, usually I'm just so busy doing lots of things and working with lots of people, collaborating and trying to get their shows happening how they want them through music direction or string arranging. And this period of time, I've just been focusing on myself, which I haven't really had a chance to do. And I've realised that I have a lot to say, and I also would go completely crazy if I couldn't perform live throughout this whole time. I went from performing 8 shows a week on a musical for 9 months to absolutely nothing, and it would have been a really dark time if I couldn't find some way. So I went to Twitch, and now I perform at least twice a week live, and it's helped me to keep sane. So it's been a, I don't know, rebuild or revolutionise, but I've definitely recovered a sense of my artistic self.
You released a track called Who Would Have Thought back in May as well, which you've described as your ode to unpredictability. That's a really beautiful project, and then included a special sort of interactive video with your fans as well. Can you tell us quickly about that?
Yeah, sure. So, and Anita was part of this clip too. I couldn't make a music video because we were trapped indoors. So I said, okay, the song is called Who Would Have Thought? And it's, the chorus is, who would have thought this could happen to me? I could never predict this. And that is kind of what life is. Like, there's always these things thrown at you, and you, good and bad, you just never know what's going to be around the corner. And I just knew that everyone would have had this experience. And so I asked everyone to finish the sentence, who would have thought blah, 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 blah could happen to me? And everyone had to hold up a sheet of paper and write this down, and then I put it into this music video. And the things that people were sending in, like, it was so heartwarming and heartbreaking, and it's kind of a little snapshot of as well how a lot of people were feeling during this time. It was earlier in the lockdown 1.0, and it was very special to me that people actually took the time to do it. So, yeah.
What was your who would have thought sign that you held up, Anita?
I thought I'd do something silly. It was, who would have thought I could make fascinators out of found objects?
And then she was wearing hers.
And I was wearing my found fascinator object.
Is this why you were baking sourdough bread in
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, Anita, do you maybe have any tips for artists out there in terms of how to stay motivated at the moment?
I would say it's a time of, I think, reflection for yourself as an artist. I know I've spent most of this time reflecting on the things that I'm not very good at. And like Xani, you were saying before, it's like before this all happened, you know, we had so many distractions, you know, and collaborating with lots of different people, and so there was never any time for you. So I would say to you, if find the time to work on the stuff that's not so strong, so you can come out of this episode a much stronger and more confident, not only person, but, you know, artist as well. That's how I'm spending my time anyway.
Beautiful. And what sort of role has music played in your lives during this time? Has it been sort of a source of therapy for you, Xani?
Oh, yeah. I actually, in the little bit where we were allowed to go out, there was a venue right near me that would open for a certain small amount of people, and I managed to get in to see a solo pianist perform, and it had been ages since I'd seen live music. And I just was sitting there and I just thought, live music is just so important. It's so special being in the room with all these people. But even though the other people wasn't the thing, it was just seeing an artist playing music with feeling and seeing it happening in real time. And I can't wait for that to happen again. And I don't even want to describe it in like its economic value or anything, but it's true, honest, like fulfilling value. And it's been something we've all gone to, and I definitely have used it to help me sleep at night when I'm stressed or anxious, to play, to just feel it. And there's been students coming to me to learn violin who haven't really played violin. That's something to do, a way to express themselves. So yeah, that's been my experience of music.
I've certainly found a lot of healing in music during this time. I know a little side project that me and my partner do together is we do a live stream on a Sunday night, sort of ambient, restful music, so people can either go to sleep to it or they can do their evening yoga or meditation too. And we've found that that's been really, us playing that music that helps to soothe us is also in turn soothing others. So we've sort of also been using this time as a bit of a therapy for others as well as ourselves. So
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You're both doing live streaming things each Sunday. Quite different.
Very different.
things, I think. Xani, you're sort of doing improvised dance music inspired by a different genre every week. Can you tell us quickly about that and where people can see that?
Yeah, so like I was saying to you before, that I pick a theme and then I run with it. So for my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/ZanoWano, and I don't know why I was drawn to Twitch, but it's just it's usually for video gamers. It's a live streaming platform, and there's people all over the world that are on watching these people play games, but there's also music on there as well. And you don't have to sign up to watch anything. It's just if you want to engage and chat, like as a little chat thing. And anyway, for the month of July, I decided to do completely improvised streams each week, no prep, but be inspired by a different dance genre or band each week. So week 1, I started at the beginning and went with Kraftwerk. So I got all inspired about Kraftwerk and found sounds that I would like on there, and vocoder effects and things, dressed up, because I thought, well, I'm going to dress up, I'm not going out anywhere. And then last week I did disco, and this week I'm doing 90s house / techno. So I've just been listening to 90s house all week, and that's the prep I do. And then whatever happens on Sunday happens.
Amazing. Oh, I might watch Xani first and then chill out with Anita afterwards.
Fall asleep to us afterwards. Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you so much to both of you, Anita Quayle and Xani Kolac from Melbourne Amplified Strings, for joining us in the David Lee Sound Gallery for the Sound Gallery sessions this evening. Next week, we have the wonderful Inventi Ensemble, a leading force in Australian chamber music, joining us from 7 o'clock next Wednesday. A huge big thank you again to our backstage crew who do these socially distanced live streamed concerts with remote operated cameras. They do an incredible job bringing this to you each and every week, and we're so happy that we can deliver incredible music to you at during these very difficult times at the moment. We will catch you next week. Thanks to Melbourne Amplified Strings.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Laurie. Indeed.
We would like to thank you and everyone involved in this experience. For more on the Sound Gallery sessions, visit monash.edu/MLIVE.